Hi guys, welcome back to a new crash course. In this React Redux crash course, you will learn different terms in Redux such as store, action, reducer, and dispatch. So what is Redux in React? Basically, it is a state management tool that allows us to access the data anywhere within the application coming from different components. I will also show you a diagram as well on how it works. And we will start everything from scratch by installing a new React app. I will also show you how to structure the folder when using Redux in your React app as well. By the end of this course, you will be assigned to a quick exercise on how to run the Redux code in the React. So without further ado, let's now get started. Alright, so first let's just try to install a new React app. So I'll navigate to my drive and right here I'll just need to run the command npx create react app, and I need to give it a name. So this will be React Redux crash course, right? So right now it tried to install this completely new React app. So while this is installing, I'll just want to try to explain you this graph right here. So right here, the problem here, let's just quickly take a look at this one first. So here we have the app component, we have search component, and this is the pet list. So say there's like a list of pets. Then right here we have the individual pet, right? So what this app gonna do is basically allow the user to search for a list of pets, and once we find the pet that we want, then we will click on one of the pet, then it will just show the detail of the pet. So the problem here is that, say the data, we're gonna put the data basically like a list of pets in this component. So what it can only do, it only allow to pass thing down the prop, right? Passing down the data into this pet component. And the problem here is that it doesn't allow to pass the data from the pet component here to this search component. So that's the problem because right here it only allow to pass from the parent component to the child component. So you can see that this is the issue because it only allow one direction but not going backward, right? So that's the problem. But here you can see we have the solution as well. So the solution here is basically we move the data from the pet list component up to the right here, the app component. So want the data right here, if we want to search for something, then we can pass down the prop to the search component, or if we want to get like a list of pet, then we can just pass the data down to this component and going to the pet component right here, right? So this is the solution of using the prop. But imagine that if we have like say 10 or 20 components, very large scale application, then it's going to be an issue because it's very hard to maintain the data. Say if we have like a app component here with the data on top here, and we have like 10 or 20 down here with the child components, then it's very hard to pass from one component to the other. So that's the problem that we try to implement when having the large scale applications. So this is only suitable for the small applications using the prop. So now let's just look at the Redux, which is right here. So what does Redux do? Right here, imagine we have the same thing. We have the app component, search component, pet list component, and the pet component here. And the data, it's not staying at the app component or either here the pet list component, but it just stay at a separate place. It's not even here. But what this one does is basically if you want to use the data in the app component, it allows us to do that as well. So we just need to write the Redux code and try to call the data directly from either here, or we can call it from the search component, pet list component, or the pet component. So it just stay at the separate place, right?
and we are able to call or use the data anywhere within the applications. So that's the benefits of using the Redux. So now we get the idea of how this works. Let's just take a look at the, so it's still installing. Once it's finished, we will then need to install these two libraries. So one is the Redux library itself, and the other one here is the React Redux. So what this one does, it allows us to use the Redux inside the React application. So now let's just pause, and I'll get back once this one is finished installing. Okay, so this has been installed. Now instead of running these applications inside my command prompt here, I also open the app folder, right, inside the VS Code, and from here I can just try to run it directly from the terminal itself. So now I can run this using the npm start. Right, so it is up and running. Now let's just try to install these two libraries. So come back here, and I can just terminate this pressing on the Control C and type Y, enter. So to install this, you just need to run npm I Redux. So this is the first library, and the other one is React Redux. So we install two libraries at the same time. So now press on the enter key. The two libraries have been installed, and right here just quickly check in the package.json. We have these two libraries, React Redux and the Redux down here. Okay, so now let's just expand the source folder, and here we have the app CSS. I think I'll just try to remove some of the file that's not in use. So this one is the setup test. We can remove this for now. We can also remove the logo app, this one right here, test.js. So we have these 5, should be good to go. Now let's just navigate to the app.js, and from here I can try to remove this as well. So I'll just need to use the a tag. Right here I can just say welcome to React Redux crash course 2021, like so, and I can try to run the application again. npm start. And here we can see that we need to remove the import svg file as well. So on top here, because we just removed that logo data, and now take a look again. Let's just refresh this. Okay, so welcome to React Redux crash course, and going back here. So what I want to do now, I want to explain you some of the right here. So start with number 1. We have some of the term that we need to understand. We have the let me just finish typing all of this, then start explaining you. So we basically have these 4, right? So one is the store. When we're talking about the Redux, we have store, we have action, we have reducer, and also we have the departure. So for the store here, it just considered as like the global state that can be accessible anywhere within the application. And for the action here, it's just define what to do, right? It just define how it's going to be. And for the reducer, it describes how an action change from one state to another. And also the reducer, it will just check which action is called So which action is called, and the store will then be modified based on the action that we define. And finally, the dispatch action here, this perform the actions to the users, and it will change the whatever that is inside the store. So I think I'm going to also try to type out all the explanation here so that you can easily understand. Alright, so let's just quickly try to go through that again. We have the store, which is the global state, and the action, it just define what to do. Reducer, it describe how an action, right, change from one state to another. And the reducer here, it will check which action is called or is used. And the store, it will then modify based on the action, right? And the departure here is basically just perform the action to the reducer. Okay, so now we get some basic idea of what this is. Now let's just try to write some codes and you can better understand it. Okay, so the first step that we will need to do, we will need to import create store from Redux, right? So just import it right here inside the index.js. And for now, the store right here, we just leave it like that. We first need to define the action. So to define the action, we just write the const increment. So this is just a function name. I call this as the path increment. So what this basically does is that say if we have a store and a pet online store, then if we want to increase the pet on the website, right? So say if currently we have 10 pets on the website, then if we want to increase a new one, then we basically what I define right here, what this function does is whenever that say user click on the add button, then it will try to increase the total pets number inside the store from 10 to 11 and more, right? So this is what the pet increment does. So now let me try to return this within this type. So this type is basically just like a name. You can just call whatever it is, but by default, people normally just use this as type, and we define this in the capital letter. So I'll just call this as pet increase, right? So just call it like that. And now we have the action defined, but this is not actually the function that does the action, right? It's not at all. It's just like how we define what it's gonna do. Okay, so now we have that. Next things, I think let me also try to define another one which is similar to this one. So we have increase, we also have the decrease. So this is decrement. This will return the type pet decrease, like so. So we have the action defined. The next things, it will be the reducer. So the reducer, let me just type the code down here. So we have that right here. So we can just try to, so this is now come to the basically just like an action. We have the pet, I call this as pet counter because this will just count the pet inside the store. We have the state, we define the state, say right now by default there's no pet in the store. We just set this state equal to 0, and this is the action. So now from here we can just use the switch. So this will be the action dot type. So the action right here dot type, which is referring to the type here. Now we can just use the case. So here we have the pet increase and we will return the state plus 1. Okay, so here we have the first one, which is the path increase, which is referring to this one. And what this does, it just try to add 1 to the state, which is by default right here is 0, so it will be returning 1. And we have another case, which is the path decrease, right? Return the state -1, and we need to also specify the default. This will return the state. Okay, so let's just save that, and right here just quickly explain you again. So we have the switch here, the action.type, which is referring to either the path increase or path decrease. And here, if this is the path increase, then we return or add 1 to the state, which is by default is 0. Otherwise, when the user click or press on the decrease, this will -1 or deduct 1. Okay, so now we have the reducer defined. Next things will be the store, right? So the store down here, we can just say let store equal to create store, and this will be the path counter. Okay, so right here, the create store, we defined it on here, if you still remember that. Okay, so now we have the store. So what are we going to do next is basically we need to perform the action to the user. So to perform the action, we will need to use the store, which is defined here, dot dispatch. Okay, so dispatch, we just need to call the path increment. So right here it will be the action, which is defined here. We just need to call it like so. So now let's just save that, and to see whether it's working or not, we have another command, which basically we want to see or try to use the console log. So it will be store.subscribed, and this will be the callback function. Use the console log right here. It will be store.get the state. Okay, so it will look like that. So now let's just quickly try to go to the website and try to show you. So you can either right click and click on the inspect, or press the F12 on the keyboard to get to the console, right? So here, click on the console tab, and now let me try to refresh this real quick. Okay, so here you can see that we have 1 over here. Now let's just go back here, and I try to copy this one and put it down here. Same one, just use the path increment 2 times. And now let's just go back, try to refresh this. Now you can see that we have number 1 and add another one, which is number 2 right here. And how about the other one? So instead of using the path increment, I use the path decrement. So now let's just take a look what happened here. Okay, so refresh this, and here you guys can see we have the 2 minus 1 equal to 1. So that's mean that it is working perfectly fine. So now quickly recap you again, because it might be new to you and you find it a little bit confusing, I believe that. And here we have the store, right? We have the action, so we just need to define what to do. And in this case, I have the path increment and also path decrement. So the type here, you can just call it any name you want. So once we have the action defined, this is the reducer. So this will describe how an action change from one state to another. So here you can see that it changed from one to another right here. So state 0 plus 1, it will be 1. Then it just right here changed from one to another, right? And we have the reducer here. It just check which action is called, or which action will be called. So in this case, we have the either pet increase or pet decrease, right? And then the store here will be modified based on the action. So the store by default it's like 0, then it will then modify based on the action that we call it either the pet increase or pet decrease. Okay, so that's the state will be modified as I mentioned here. Last one here, the patch, it just perform the action, right? It just however that we call which action, it will just perform that. So right here I just patch one, which is the pet increment, and another one here also pet increment, and the third one is the pet decrement. So the pet increment here, it's just referring to this one, the action right here, but even though it is say like an action, but it's not actually an action, it just define what it's going to do, but what it actually does is inside the reducer here, and it will just try to perform this action to the reducer, and reducer will check. Okay, so this is how the Redux works, explaining you in a very simple terms. I hope that you understand. So the next one, or the next thing that I want to do, I will try to convert all of these right into different folder of files. So for now, let me just try to comment all of this. So from here to here, just comment all of this, and then we start another one. Okay, so next we will be creating two new folders inside this source folder. So I'll just need to create new folder called reducers, and another one will be the should be outside right here will be actions. So we have two folders inside this source directory. Now inside the reducer, I want to create some files. So it will be let me just try to call this as pet counter.js. Also another one will be pet favorite.js, and don't forget to also have the index.js inside the reducer folder here as well. Okay, so from here inside the pet counter.js, I will just need to try to grab the code that I just showed you, which is inside the index.js, right? So it will be right here. We'll be using this code again, and inside the pet counter, let's just comment this out. So we have the pet counter state action, and this is the switch. And now instead of 0 by default, I'll just say like 10. So right now imagine that we have 10 pets inside our applications by default. So down here, what I can do, I can just export default pet counter here. So just export that, and let me try to also copy everything from here, right? Inside the pet favorite, I just need to paste everything here. So I just need to change this pet favorite, and the same as this one, favorite increase, and this is the decrease. So by default, let's just imagine that we have pets, 5 pets that's already in added to the favorite list. So this is 5, and also let's just imagine that we have this, right? But in real world, or maybe you can try to implement or try to fix the data from the server, from the database, and also put it here, right? But for this, I just need to, by default, using the state equal to 10, or right here, state equal to 5 for the favorite list. Okay, so we also need to change the pet to pet favorite here, pet counter, change this to pet favorite. So now we have this two file setup. Next thing, we will need to go say to the index.js, we just need to import right here. So because let me just try to search for the right here, the store. We have the store pet counters. So say if I comment this one out, because right now we have two reducer, right? We have the pet counter and also the pet favorite. You might be thinking that, oh, maybe I can just put it like this, pet favorite, but that's not the case in the Redux. What you have to do, let me just comment this one out. You can try to import the combined reducer on top here, coming from the Redux, and I just want to keep the code a little bit better. So instead of defining it inside the index.js here, I define it inside the index.js under the reducer folder. Okay, so I can just let me just close all of this. Try to import the pet counter from this directory, which is the pet counter, and next one will be the pet favorite from pet favorite right here, and finally import the combine reducer from Redux, right? So this is what it looked like, and down here I'll just need to, okay, so let me just call this as reducer. Okay, and here will be the combine reducer and we can now call the pet counter and also pet favorite. Okay, so it would look like this. Next, we just need to import default reducer. Okay, so it would look like this. Let me just close this. Okay, so now we have the pet counter, we have the pet favorite, and also the index as we define the reducer, right? Okay, so now back to the index.js. We have the create store imported up here, right? So next thing will be importing the reducers from reducer, which is the folder referring here. And you can also try to import like index.js like so, right? But the thing is that because we are using React, the webpack, it basically try to look for this particular index.js by automatically by default. So we just need to specify like so, then it will just work fine. Okay, so we have to import the reducer as well. So now down here, let me try to use the store equal to create store. Okay, so right here we can just call the reducer. So it would look like this. Now let's just save that, and here we can see that everything works fine without any issue. So the next thing I want to show you is the React Dev tool. Okay, so now I click on this, and this is the Chrome extension. Basically, it allows us to try to see the value, which is similar to the React Dev tool, but this is particularly for the Redux. Okay, so since I have already tried to add it to my Chrome, you can also do the same thing. So I won't do that right now since it's already added. So the next thing, just go back and try to search for or go to this second link. So this is the GitHub link. Okay, so once you are here, let's try to scroll down and click on this first one right here, the documentation, which is the browser extension installation and configuration. Okay, so click on that. It will now okay, so here it will go to this page, and now let's just scroll down here. You can see that this is for Chrome. We can just click on this link to get it, or if you are using like Firefox, so here this is the link and more. So scroll a little bit down here, we have the basic store with Redux here, the section. So basically what we need to do, we need to try to grab this, right? Try to grab this line of code, just copy that, go back to the applications, and right here, we just need to place a comma and paste the code right here. So it would look like this. Now let's just save it. So here, this is what it looked like. Let's just go back to the here, the website, refresh that. And now you can click on this arrow and here, click on the Redux. Okay, so here we have this installed up and running. With this, you can see we have the state, which is right now, you can see we have the pet counter. By default it is 10 and pet favorites, which is 5. Now let's just take a look at the code, which is right here. This is the pet counter. You can also change the name. It doesn't really have to be like pet counter. Say if you want to have your own, say my counter, like that. Here you just need to specify like so. Save it. Now let's just go back here and try to refresh. Okay, so go to state. Here you can see that your state name is changed to my counter. So I'll just go back a bit here. And if you're wondering where is the number 10 and number 5 coming from, which is right here that we have already defined, which is state pet counter 10, and here this is the pet favorite, which is this state equal to 5, which you can see right here. Okay, so next we'll go into the index.js. So right here, let me try to import another one here, which is the provider. So import provider coming from React Redux. Okay, so right here we only use the Redux, but right here we need to use the React Redux because we want to connect the Redux with the React app that we install here. So now the provider, let's just try to come here and try to basically we need to wrap the provider. So will be provider, so wrap it around the app components like so. And right here we need to specify which is store equal to the store right here. Okay, so let's just try to type the store, this one referring to here. And yep, that's very simple how we try to define the store here, and we can be accessible from the app component. And if you have more components down here, can also be accessible from this store as well. Okay, so now once we have that, next thing I want to do is right here inside the action, we don't have any file so far. I will try to create a file called index.js. So from this file here, I want to define the action, but I think that let's just now go to the app.js real quick. So from here, I can try to import. So say if I want to access the data coming from this app component, right? So I just need to use the use selector. Right here will be the React Redux. So this is the use selector, and on top here I can just try to say pet counter equal to selector. This will be the state, and the state dot pet counter, right? So this is one. Another one will be pet favorite, use selector, state, go to state dot pet favorite. Okay, let's just save that. We have this variable, which is basically we try to grab the pet counter. The default state is 10, and here this is 5, so we will get the number 10 and number 5 here. Okay, so now let me try to maybe quickly show you. Let's just say this one pad counter like so, and we can just call the pad counter, which is referring here, and the other one down here, let's just use the h2 this time, say number of favorite pads so far. We can just try to use the pad favorite like that. Now let's try to save it, and let's just take a quick look. Okay, let's refresh this, and here it is, guys. So here you can see we have the pad counter. By default is 10, and the number of favorite pads so far is, which is 5 by default, and we can also see the number here as well. Okay, so now we have the data show. Next thing I want to quickly do is try to add, like, say 2 button. Okay, so button, this is the button number 1. I'll say just add pad. Maybe try to add another one down here. We'll just say remove pad and quickly save that. So this is what it looked like. We have the add pad, the remove pad, but it does nothing at the moment. Right now we need to try to use the on click function, right? But before that, let's just try to define the action inside the index.js. So let me try to grab the code that I showed you earlier in the course here. So it will be this one. Just copy that, go back to the index.js inside the actions. Let's just uncomment this for now. Okay, so here we have the pad increment. We have the type, which is exactly the same thing, but instead of just con, we will just try to export this, right? Export the pad increment and also the pad decrement. So save that, and it looks something like this. And next we will need to go to the app.js. So now I'll need to use the this patch, right? So it will be use this patch like that, and don't forget to also import the pad increment and also pad decrement, if I spell it correctly, decrement from action. Okay, again, you can just use that, or you can just import like index as well, but it will just automatically recognize that and import it. So this is the pad increment. Also down here, let's just try to use this patch to perform the action. So I just call this as this patch, use this patch like that, and in the button I'll need to use this on click event. So we have the here the event, it will be this patch, and we just need to call the pad decrement increment, which is the here we import it from this action. Okay, next one, similar thing. Here will be this patch to the pad decrement. Okay, so now let's just save that and take a quick look on the website. Quick refresh here. Let me also try to close some of this. Okay, so now let me try to click on the add pad, and here you guys can see we get the data update here. So here, this is the pad counter. So when I click on this, we get the number increased by 1 each time. And what about this one, the remove pad? This will be decreased by 1. So when you take a look here, see if you want to come to this part right here, you can also click on here to jump to back here, or basically you can just try to click on the play button and it will just increase and see. This is how we use this, quite useful. And we can also have like the chart here as well, from the state to the app pet counter, and also the pet favorite. We also have the raw file which looks something like this. So this is the different say currently we have like the number, the state is 15 for the pet counter, and previously it is like 16, right? So say if I add a new one, then coming from here you can also see that the data is it keeps changing here. Okay, and we have the other trace too, and also the test here, the actions. So it is quite useful having when we come to use this Redux dev tool. Okay, so now we have this pet counter up and running, and the next thing I want to also show you, so right here, say if I want to add like a number to this one, right? So say right now by default, when we click on this add pet button, it will increase by 1. So what about if I want to increase it, say by 2, by 3, or by 5 or 10? Then I can just add like a number here. So for this example, I will just use like number 2. When I click on this button, it will increase by 2. Okay, so now let's just save this file and go to the index.js, which is right here. So for this example, I'll use the pet increment, and right here I can just use like call this as number, and this one will be the payload. Okay, and this will be number. Save this file here and go to the pet counter. So instead of +1, okay, instead of +1, we will need to use the action dot payload. Would look like this. Okay, so once we have that, let's just quickly test this out. So by default this is 10. When I click on here, you guys can see we have the number which is 12. Let me just try to use this. So 14, from 12 to 14, as you can see, this is how you try to use the parameter by adding the value that you want to specify from here. Okay, using that payload, which is we define it inside the action, which is the payload, put like having the name here, and inside the user this state, we just need to do the plus with the actions dot payload. Okay, so that's how you try to say if you want to increment it by 2, 3, or 5. Okay, so I have another one, which is the exercise for you guys. So for this one, because right here you can see that we have the pet favorite, right? But it still doesn't do anything, okay, at the moment. So now let me just try to quickly define another one here. So what I'm going to do, let me just try to quickly create a new file or create a new component. So it will be, say, new app.js, and I'll just copy everything from the app component to the new app component here. So I'll just save this, and instead of saying this is welcome here, I'll just say this as new component. This will be referring to the add pet to favorite. Okay, like that. So now let's just quickly save it. Going back to the index.js, we will need to import the new one here, which is the new app from, this will be new app. Okay, and the component will then be called down here, so it will be new app. Okay, like that. Just save it. So here you guys can see whenever that you have a new component defined, then you just need to add it down here with this wrapping by this provider, and we can access this data anywhere within this application. Okay, so this is quite useful when it comes to using the Redux. Okay, so now we have this new component also defined. Let's just take a look at the website here. Let me try to refresh this, and here you guys can see we have the welcome here, which is basically the coming from here. This is the add pet counter using the app component, and down here this is the new app component, which basically what you guys can do. It's just a quick exercise for you guys, adding the pet to the favorite. So instead of like pet counter, you can just try to change this to the add pet to favorite, remove pet from favorite, and this is the pet favorite counter, and also the number of which is basically you can remove this part, right? It is exactly the same as this one here, and also I can just get it all of this from the app component here as well. But just right here you guys can do, let's just come back here. I just want to explain you a little bit more. So from the action right here, so say right here, right now we only have these two action defined. Okay, so you guys can create two new which is the pet favorite increment down here, and also pet favorite decrement down here as well. So the pet favorite we have already defined, and that's fine for now. And you come to the new app.js. So from here you will need to import two more, which is the pet favorite decrement and also increment, and you will then need to change it here to change this button label as well. And from here you can just use this pet favorite, and you can get rid of all of this because it is not actually required, because we are now using the new app component. Okay, so yep, that's a quick exercise for you guys to get into this, just to basically warm up what we learned so far. And I also put the this source code inside the video description as well, so you guys can find and start typing or start coding from there. And I think that's pretty much it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you learn a lot from this React Redux crash course. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and also don't forget to like this video for more content similar to this one I just showed you just now. And don't forget to also subscribe as well to get more content. And I'm just excited to show you guys this day what the crash course that I've been teaching so far. And if you want more crash course, again, let me know as well. I think that's all for today, and see you guys in the next video.